coach. Tell us a little bit about that.
I started thinking about how my life has been. I actually enjoy change. You know, where most people don't like change and they dread change, and when change happens, they begin to just get stressed out and things like that. I looked at my life, and over the course of my life, I've changed all the time.
Yeah.
And like you said, you get better and better. When stress comes along and you find that you have to do something different, I embrace that. It is my earnest belief that you really cannot get anything done without taking action. A lot of people talk about what they want to do and, you know, what kind of dreams they have and where they want to be, and they don't do anything about it.
Is dead.
Thank you. Exactly. So they don't do anything about it. So for me, I believe that you have to constantly be changing and growing, and that you have to take action in order to achieve your goals.
And how do you help people to achieve that?
The coaching piece. I believe that everybody needs help. You know, we can do it on our own. But you have somebody in your corner, an accountability partner, someone who's going to be there to support you, somebody who's going to encourage you, help you develop a plan. Those kinds of things, that's what a coach does. And as the coach, I help my clients to create strategic plans to help them to accomplish the things that they want to do.
How does God influence this ministry?
It's amazing because we can go back to many years ago when I didn't even know that I was called to be a minister, where God was working on me and doing certain things in my life. And what I find now, as I'm coaching individuals, and I may not even tell them that I'm a minister, I have individuals say, well, the most important thing that I need to focus on is studying the Word, or getting back into the Bible, or building my relationship with God. And it's wide open for us to use biblical principles and scriptures to help them hone what they want to do and go after their goals. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people that come into my coaching practice believe in God and want to use the principles that God has given us to develop their lives and to go after their dreams.
And what kind of principles would that be that God has given us? Just give us a little taste.
Okay. So one of the things that I think is so clear in the Word, it says, write the vision and make it plain.
All right.
Okay? And that's one of the things that most of the people that I come across, they have this vision that God has given them, but they're not really acting it out. They're not really living it. And so, you know, we focus on honing in on that vision. And, you know, we don't really talk a lot about goal setting in the Word because we don't really see that spelled out. But look at what Paul did. Paul, he used to persecute Christians, and all of a sudden, his goal was to make sure that the Gentiles knew about God. And so we could use biblical characters also to understand how we can do things the way God would have us to do them. Look at Job. A lot of people come to me and they're going through challenges and they're going through persecution and all those kinds of things. And when you look at what Job went through, yet he stood. He refused to curse God and die. And that's where we have to be when we're trying to walk this walk.
How do we get through our difficulties and move on to that purpose and fulfilling the purpose of God in our lives?
You know, I think it's interesting that you asked that, Kathy, because for me, honestly, hang on. That's really how you do it. You have to persevere. How I came to be called into ministry is because I went through, you know, and I know everybody goes through, right? I went through. I've been saved since I was 13 years old, and so I went through most of my life saying, oh, I don't have a testimony, you know, nothing big ever really happened to me. Watch what you say. That's exactly right.
Well, get one.
Exactly. And so I went through a trial, you know. I went through a test. My infant daughter almost died. I had to deliver her a month early. And so she was born without the sucking mechanism. And so she was not able to eat. And when you don't eat as an infant, you just lose weight. And then, you know, she was admitted to the hospital for failure to thrive. And, you know, that was a trial. And then I went through divorce, and that was a trial. And I lost my job, and that was a trial. At the end of all of that, I was so overwhelmed and so stressed out and really in a dark place. I call it my wilderness experience, and I know a lot of people go through that. And I just got closer to God, and I hung on to Him, and I stayed in His Word, and I heard from Him, and I listened to Him, and I was obedient to Him. And then it took about 2 years, Kathy. I came out of that in 2 years, and I woke up one day, and the sun was shining, and I was like, oh my gosh. And when I thought about it, I said, you know how many people don't hang on during that wilderness time. How many people commit suicide even during that time when it's the darkest hour?
They turn their back on God because they think that God has left them.
Right. They turn their back on him, and they don't think that he hears them anymore. They denounce the church. They won't even step foot back in church because the church people weren't there for them, or whatever the case may be. And what I found was when I woke up that morning, it was like a miracle. The sun was shining in my life. It might have been shining outside all along. I didn't know because I was so, I won't even say I was depressed. It was an oppression. You know, it was a spiritual thing. And when I woke up, I was like, wow, if you hold on and trust God, he will see you through. And I felt like it was my mission and my purpose in life to make sure I got that message out to people.
So tell us a little bit more about your coaching. You know, why would someone hire you as a coach?
The thing about coaching is that you have a dream, a goal, a vision, something that you want to get accomplished. It's very difficult to stay on track and do it by yourself. Some people do. I mean, if you're good at setting goals and you're an independent spirit and you can do these things on your own,
it's wonderful. What kind of goals would people be setting?
Maybe someone wants to start their own business.
Okay.
You know, I've spoken to individuals who have a ministry that they want to start. They know God is calling them to do something, and yet they can't quite get it off the ground.
So it basically deals with people's visions.
People's visions. I sometimes have coached people who are trying to find a job.
Okay.
You know, I've coached people who wanted to start businesses. I've coached people who are just trying to figure out what their purpose is in life. You know, those kinds of things. And so it's been very interesting because people come and they're not clear. You know, you may know what you want to do, but not really be clear on how to go after it.
Right.
And in the coaching process, what we do is we just really uncover so much. And then there are a lot of aha moments where you go, oh, this is the way that I need to approach it. And the main thing about coaching is accountability. Really being accountable. When you come into the coaching process, you have to be committed. You have to say, this is what I want out of my life, and I'm going to really put everything I have into it. And so these people are accountable. I give them assignments. I say, okay, this week you need to go focus on this. They come back, and once that assignment is done, there's more assignments. And so it doesn't, you know, it's really good for people who just need that extra push to make sure that they stay on track with their goals.